Now, I know some of you don't like it when I bring out this mini microphone, however, there is so much noise going outside right now, and this is just gonna help mitigate it. I am very sorry. Eventually, I will get a lapel mic that is wireless so I don't have to hold it like this, but for now, this is the best I can do. But anyway, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kira, and today I am trying NEOCOLOR IIs for the very first time. Besides my initial swatching, I have never used these water-soluble pastels before, and I am very excited to give them a go because they are quite a popular and hyped up product in the adult coloring community. I not only wanted to make this video because I thought it might be mildly entertaining to watch me use the NEOCOLORs for the first time, but also to show you how I go about learning the ins and outs of a new product as well. Before I show you my learning process though, I wanted to tell you what the NEOCOLORs actually are because they are quite a unique product. I have a summary here that ChatGPT has so kindly imparted with me. NEOCOLOR II water-soluble wax pastels are a fantastic tool for adult coloring enthusiasts looking to add depth and creativity to their pages. They can be used like crayons for bold, vibrant fills, or blended with water to create soft gradients and watercolor effects. So the NEOCOLOR IIs come in a range of different numbered sets, and the full range is 84 colors. However, because they aren't the most inexpensive product out there, I'm just starting off with the 30 set and I'll gradually build my collection from here. Now, when it comes to learning how to use a new product or medium for my coloring pages, I have a loose 5-step process. The first step I've already done off camera, which is swatching. Swatching is super helpful when you're trying out a new supply because it shows you how the colors actually look on paper, not just on the barrel or label. It also helps you to figure out how the medium works. Does it blend well? Does it work with water? Etc. Plus, having a quick reference makes it so much easier to choose the right colors for your coloring projects. I keep all of my swatches for all my supplies and products within this Derwent sketchbook. However, if I'm swatching a water activated medium, I will do this on a thicker cardstock and then cut that out and stick it into the book to avoid any warping of the sketchbook paper. My second step is to watch a whole bunch of tutorials on YouTube to figure out how others use the certain product or medium. I do have a few go-to YouTubers that I turn to when I want to learn these certain techniques, so I highly recommend coming up with a list of YouTube channels that work for you. For me, my favorite channels are ones that are clear and concise, demonstrate the techniques in a really easy to follow way, and also have a fun personality at the same time. When I was learning about NEOCOLOR IIs in particular, I found 3 YouTube tutorials that were really helpful for me. The first one, I'm sure you can guess, it was from My Colorful Country Life. The second was from Shell's Coloring Journey, and the third was from Jen's Coloring Corner. What I did was take the key points and techniques from these videos and put them into a useful tip summary, which I will share with you shortly, but before we do that, I want to talk about the third step in my process, which is following a color along. Well, somewhat follow it. I say somewhat because I usually always go off on my own tangent, but I find a color along is really helpful for figuring out color placement of the product and also some really helpful color combinations. So what I'm going to show you on the screen now is my very first time using the NEOCOLOR IIs. I loosely followed this color along here from My Colorful Country Life as a guide. I won't be using the same book or page as Karen, nor will I be using the exact same colors because I don't have all the colors she has within my 30 set, but it's still a helpful guideline for me as I work on the background for this page in Fairy Tales and Folklore by Emily Lederhall Oberg. Now, I decided to mask off the edge of the paper for my background because I'm not a massive fan of coloring straight to the edge. I find it's trickier to work with and can get quite messy, so that's why I've done that here. I'm just roughly following the color placement that Karen demonstrated in her color along. And whilst you're watching me do this, I thought now would be a good time to talk about my quote unquote findings that I found whilst I was watching the 3 NEOCOLOR tutorials that I was speaking about earlier. So according to these colorists, NEOCOLOR IIs work best in books that have thick, smooth paper, such as Hannah Carlzon, Maria Troll, Johanna Basford, Melpomene Chattopanagiotou, and Kirby Rosannes. Which means, on the other hand, they don't work well on thinner paper like you'll find in Amazon printed colouring books. If you prefer not to mask off your background like I've done here and colour straight to the edge of the paper, it is recommended to put a scrap piece of paper underneath the page that you're working on. In fact, this is a great habit that I need to instill within myself for whatever page you're colouring with whatever medium, as it helps just keep things neat and prevents anything transferring to other pages in your colouring books. When it comes to actually using the NeoColor IIs, layering is key. The first layer is all about mapping out your color placement. Consistent medium pressure with a scumbling motion really helps avoid any blotchiness and streaks. And overlapping the pigments creates smoother transitions between colors. For tiny areas, you can actually pull the color straight from the pastel using a brush or a water brush. You will see me do this quite a few times on the pages I'm working on in this video. And as for water, less is more. You want just enough to activate and blend the pigment, but not too much that you actually soak through the paper. And a helpful tip that Jen's Colouring Corner imparted in her tutorial: always work from the left side down so you avoid dragging your hand through the colours on the page, or vice versa if you're left-handed. One thing that did really stick out to me whilst I was watching these tutorials is how versatile the NeoColor IIs are. You can use them to create backgrounds at the beginning or end of your projects, and they are a great base for layering with Prismacolors to add detail and depth. A lot of these colorists also don't really do any masking of the foreground elements when they're working with NeoColors, so that means they are great for super fast and effective backgrounds. So those are all the tips and techniques that I found the most useful as a NeoColor newbie. Hopefully they were helpful for you too. That said, as I was trying them out for the first time, are there any of these tips that I don't fully agree with? There is kind of one. From what I can recall, 2 out of the 3 tutorials that I watched recommended using medium to hard pressure to avoid having to do too many layers and thus using too much water on the page. However, for me personally, I think I would prefer to have a little bit less pigment on the page. When I was activating this background in particular, I felt like I had too much pigment to work with, which made it harder to achieve a noticeable gradient between the colors. I'm sure this is something I'll get better at as I continue working with the medium, but as a beginner, I believe it's better to start off with multiple light layers. It's always easier to add more color to a page than it is to take it away. If you are going to follow this multiple layer approach though, I would recommend using a book that has really thick paper, which I found Fairy Tales and Folklore. It really handled this water medium very well. Now, my motivation for purchasing the NeoColor IIs was mainly for backgrounds in my colouring books, specifically the stippled effect many colorists achieve in their pages. That's why you'll see me using a dabbing, stippling motion with my brush whilst I'm blending out the colours for this page. I'll admit, when I'd done the first layer, I thought I had completely butchered the background and really wasn't happy with how it was looking, but I should have known that you just need to trust the process and the real magic happens once you do the second layer. As Karen said in her NeoColor tutorial, the first layer is all about color placement and the second layer and any subsequent layers after that are for blending. To finish off the background, I added some paint splatters with silver foil paint from Montmartre. Honestly, I wouldn't recommend this product. I'm just trying to use it up. And then I also used some watered down white acrylic paint for some additional splatters. Now, as I was peeling off the masking tape, you'll notice that I didn't get a super crisp edge on the left-hand side. Unfortunately, this does happen to me more frequently than I'd like, and I think the main culprit is that I'm not able to fully adhere the masking tape to the page due to the book's binding. In the future, I think I'm just gonna need to purchase some narrower masking tape. I could cut down this masking tape here so that it's the correct size, but I'm just too lazy for that. So yeah, hopefully a narrower masking tape will alleviate this issue moving forward. So there it is, my first background using NEOCOLOR IIs. And if I do say so myself, I don't think it's too shabby. Obviously, it doesn't look exactly the same as Karen's. I'm just gonna blame that on the fact that I didn't have the same colors as her. Totally not my lack of skill. But my fourth step after following a color along is to try and recreate a page that I've seen on Pinterest or Instagram. I do think it's a really valuable exercise trying to recreate another colorist's work without having a color along to follow, because it pushes you to develop your skills and creativity. Without the guidance of a step-by-step tutorial, you have to rely on your own skill set, your own knowledge, your own imagination. And this helps you understand techniques and color choices on a deeper level. And I think this is how I was personally able to expedite my coloring skills. I seriously spent the first 3 to 4 months of my coloring journey just trying to recreate pictures and pages that I saw on Pinterest and Instagram. Obviously, you want to give these people credit if you're posting any of your pages on social media, but I found this process really gave me such a deeper understanding of my own techniques and supplies rather than following someone else step by step. There is an Instagram account that I'm absolutely obsessed with at the moment that I've spoken about previously on the channel. It's by a colorist called Nicole, and the name of her account is @Nollis World. Nolly's World, @Nolly's World. Their pages have such unique color palettes, they use a lot of NeoColors, and I'd almost describe their work as psychedelic in nature. So when I decided I wanted to create a NeoColor II background for this page here in Spooky by Sarah Shefchick, I knew that Nolly's World was the perfect account to turn to for some inspiration. So after scrolling through their account, I landed on this page here to recreate. This is originally from Hannah Carlson's book, Jewelry Box. So the first thing you can see me do here to recreate the background by Nolly's World is just placing down all the color onto the page. I chose colors from my personal NeoColor set that looked the most similar to Nicole's and replicated the color placement as best as I could, considering I was working on a completely different page. After that, I activated each color individually, starting with the darkest colors first, working towards the lighter colors. I felt like this was the best approach to follow because then my lighter colors would have less of a chance of being overpowered by the darker colors. However, whilst I was following Karen's color along before, I noticed that she was activating her NeoColors section by section rather than color by color. I don't think one approach is better than the other. I think it just depends on the result you're looking for in the end. By following Karen's approach, you can create a more seamless blend between colors that are within the same color family. Whereas the approach that I'm doing here works better for when you're trying to blend together a multitude of different colors, because the risk of creating muddy blends is much lower. I also trusted the process this time and knew that the page would come together once I did the second layer. And something I forgot to mention for the previous page is that when you're doing your second layer or any subsequent layers after the first, it is best to pull the color straight from the pastel rather than applying it to the page and activating. I'm sure there are a multitude of reasons why this approach is better, but just trust me, it ends up in a much more polished look. Now, something I wasn't happy with when looking at my page in comparison to Nicole's is the fact that she had these little dabblings of white throughout her background. I tried to add these in after doing the second layer of NEOCOLORs by pulling the color straight from the white pastel. That basically did nothing. So I tried coloring straight onto the page and activating the pigment from there. It was a tinsy bit more successful, but didn't make too much noticeable of a difference. So I think the next time I do a NeoColor background, I'm actually gonna try and place the colors onto the page with a little bit more space in between and just see what effect that creates. But regardless of this issue, I'm still pretty happy with how the background turned out. I think the psychedelic background really matches the energy of the illustration because I don't know about you, but to me, it looks like Delilah the cat is on something that's making her a little bit loopy. Now, I do want to say that if you're ever worried about ruining a page with a new product or medium, try experimenting first with a sketchbook. Try out different techniques, different color combinations, and just see what happens. I personally don't do this because I'm an impatient gal and I just want to go straight in and start coloring on a page. And yes, sometimes this doesn't work in my favor. However, if you're not as much of a risk taker as I am, having a sketchbook that is dedicated to experimenting and playing with a new medium is a great way to practice and develop your skills, and is also a super therapeutic practice as well. And then the fifth and final step in my learning a new medium process is then to start coloring and creating backgrounds from your own imagination. Now, I'm not at this stage yet. I still need to follow a few more color alongs and do a few more recreations till I get to that level, but hopefully within time, I will feel confident enough to let my innate creativity take the reins and create my own NeoColor II background designs, as well as try basing with NeoColors as well. So, after coloring my first two NeoColor II backgrounds, do I think this product is worth the hype? To be completely honest with you, yes. Yes, they are. I really enjoyed my process of coloring with the Neos, and I think there's just so much scope to have a lot of fun with different effects without necessarily needing a whole heap of skill and technical experience. And I know I'm gonna have so much fun with elevating my pages with some NeoColor II backgrounds. I already want to expand and add more colors to the 30 set that I currently own. If you are also a NeoColor II fan, let me know in the comments what your favorite way to use them is, and if you have any tips for me for future pages. In the meantime, happy coloring, friends. Have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!